Alright guys, so I just want to make a little video over here on the channel talking about this rotating rate up that we have over on the NA version of the game for the Valentine's event. It's the Karen banner, if anybody's wondering, like, is this a separate banner? No, it's just the Karen banner that has like a rotating extra guy going up on it. By the way, if you're going to summon for Karen, make sure you try to hit her on like the days that she's actually going to be on solo rate up, right? Like you want to actually hit these days to have a bit of a better chance to get her. You don't want the rate up to be split between like, you know, Karen and John, for instance, right? Like you don't want to make your chances even less. I don't advise anybody to really summon on the banner at all, just because the Lostbelt 6 stuff might be coming early. And even if you don't care about someone like, say, Morgan, Melusine and Oberon should also be coming within like a month to 2 months after Morgan comes out, right? Also keep in mind that as a part of the Lostbelt 6 campaign thing, whatever you want to call it, Castoria did come back on the JP version of the game when all of that Lostbelt 6 stuff was going down. So like if you're a new player or you just missed getting Castoria on her initial rate up, didn't get her on the GSSR, this is going to be a really good time to go ahead and try and get her, right? Like keep in mind that even if you don't care about Morgan, which I think is like the most popular servant that everybody really cares about. I mean, that's a little bit of bias from me, but unironically, I think she's the most popular servant coming out of Lostbelt 6, I believe, if I remember correctly, when it at least hit the JP version. But there's a lot of other really OP servants that are also coming back. Like, it is just an insane gathering of broken, dummy, nutty servants, right? It's just absolutely insane. So make sure you at least save your Saint Quartz for that. Like, I do not advise that, even like as good as I think Karen is, I don't advise summoning for her, right? Because if the countdown truly is going to end on the 22nd of March, and then they're just going to immediately move into like the Lostbelt 6 release, maybe like a week after that, dude, it's like shut it down, bro, because it's going to be just an insane amount of broken servants coming out back to back to back to back to back. Like, all of the servants that come out for like Lostbelt 6 are just really dummy nutty. I mean, like the worst ones are what, like Balabon Sith, Bargus, and like Percival, and calling them like the worst dudes there. I mean, they're all just like good in general. So yeah, make sure you're at least saving. If you're a newer player and you're seeing like all of these servants, you're like, dude, look at all these servants that are coming out, and even some of them are limited. That means they gotta be crazy. FGO is not necessarily like that either, right? Like if you see some of these servants, you're like, you know, Maeve, Ketz, Lancer, Artoria, and Sitanai all have to be dummy nutty crazy because they're story locked. This is not like other mobile games, right? Like if you've played like, let's say like Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle, right? Like the Dokkan Fest or their like limited servants for, you know, the equivocation for Fate, those are usually like the best units in the game, right? The Dokkan Fest or like the Dokkan Fest LRs, but that's not necessarily the case with Fate. A lot of the limited servants and like some of the story lock servants even are going to be really good, and they tend to kind of be like really strong. That's why they're like limited. They're not always around, but you can even look at some people like, and you know, I'm going to use a personal example, like Gilgamesh, right? Like Gilgamesh is my favorite character, so don't think I'm like talking a whole bunch of crap about him right now. I'm not trying to like just take a dookie on him. What I'm trying to say is that he's not like the best servant in the game. Like he's good, but like, is he like infinitely better than like Artoria is? Like Artoria, who you can also use for like Buster looping, does really good damage, has the same battery. You know, like maybe he's a bit better because of like the special damage mod, but it's not like, oh, if you don't have Gilgamesh, you gotta shut your account down because it's gonna be complete hot dog water, right? Or even like, you know, you look at like Gilgamesh and you're like, oh, but he's like a limited like AoE archer guy. It's like, bro, you have Arash, right? Like you could use Arash and you could get arguably better results out of the 1-star servant, right? Because of what Arash allows you to do by cycling through your servants, because, you know, he game ends himself right in the middle of combat after firing his NP. So yeah, I don't want like any newer players that are potentially like going into this event being like, oh, Karen's out, because Karen's, you know, like a Fate Stay Night character. So I'm assuming some people are going to start hopping into the game because of Karen. They're like, oh, she's finally in the game, I'm gonna go hop over there and play FGO. I don't want them to be like, dude, I gotta go for like Quetzalcoatl, because Ketz is good, right? Like Lancer Artoria, she's good. Maeve is good, especially after Grail Live when she gets her buff. And Sitanai's, let's not get into Sitanai, but they're like good servants. But you can make the case of like other servants even on this own rate up that are just non-limited or like even better or comparatively as good. Like Drake is like about as good as like Lancer Artoria, right? Like they kind of basically do the same thing as like Buster AoEs with a 50% battery, and she's not limited, right? That's kind of the point I want to get across, is like just because you're new to the game and you see like a lot of limited guys, that doesn't make this like a reason to go summon on this. But even B, I think the main thing is that, like, especially if you're newer, you're going to get so much more value out of summoning for someone like Castoria or Oberon, right? Just like really good. I don't want to say like generic, because Castoria is definitely a geared towards being used with arts people, but you can almost use her in a generic way as well, right? Because Castoria just gives you like the 50%, which is really good. Good attack, NP gain, like the 50% battery is really, really strong for like any team party, right? Just gives a lot of like really strong buffs, and her NP is very, very good for pretty much any party. Just specifically, you won't really get to take advantage of the arts buff if you're using her with like, I don't know, Jack over here, right? Because Jack is a quick servant and she only has the one arts card, right? That's kind of the general point that I'm getting across here, right? Is that just wanted to take the majority of the video saying, I don't think this is even worth summoning for, right? Like, I kind of mentioned that I wanted to indulge the idea of like, well, if you're like a whale or somebody and you're like, oh, I really like Bradamante, I'm going to go over here for Bradamante and try to get it. Like, sure, that's fine. But like, if you're someone that is like not spending money on the game, or you're a newer player and you're just trying to get yourself good units, just wait like a month, and then we'll kind of find out what's going on with a lot of the Lostbelt 6 people. And then even then, you can level up a lot of like the level 3-star servants that are just really good, just generally just nice supports, right? Like even Mash is like really just fine early game, right? Nice defense, you know, can give you some batteries, or you could use her other version if you make it all the way to Lostbelt. You can use her for like a double taunter. People like Asclepius are really good. Paracelsus is a really good. Hans is still really good if you just need like generic support people, and you'll have like enough like DPS people laying around. Take it from me, I used Bedivere at NP1 on my JP account because I never got any extra copies of him, and he still performed okay. So like the majority of the video taken up just talking about like, I don't think this is a good idea, no matter like what reason. Like, I don't know why you'd want to go in the banner. The only thing that I think makes it valid is that if one of these servants is your like favorite servant, right? Like for instance, I really like Jean. I'm probably not going to summon on this, but if there was somebody I was probably going to summon for, it would more than likely be Jean. Like I'd probably go in on the Jean portion of the banner, right? And try to go ahead and get her, like, or Mordred, right? But I got Mordred while I was summoning on a different banner. So I got spooked by her, so I don't really need to do that anymore. But regardless, if one of these people is like your favorite like waifu servant, because again, these are like the wife, well, except for like Dioscuri, because he's like snuck onto the unit over there. But if one of these servants is like your absolute like favorite waifu person, and you're gonna have like more fun playing the game with like say Quetzalcoatl in your box than, you know, dominating the game with like a Morgan setup, or with Castoria, or with Oberon, right? If you're gonna have more fun just playing with your favorite servants and you don't need to do like super insane meta stuff, then by all means, like fine, like go ahead, throw a couple of multis at your favorite servant and see if you don't manage to get them. But also keep in mind that like everybody here, except for like these the story locked ones, they're on every banner, right? So like in theory, if you just like saved your Saint Quartz, and like let's say you also really want to get Morgan, or you really want Melusines coming out, but you also really want Bradamante, right? Like Bradamante could surprise you on the Melusine banner, right? Like she as an off rate up servant could still always come into any summon that you do, which is why I don't think banners like these are like really good ideas to go for. Because for instance, even like, let's take the Mordred thing in my own personal experience, right? Like I always really wanted Mordred, especially after the Apocrypha rerun where they gave her that costume. And so I've always really wanted to get Mordred, but I was always like really hesitant to specifically go on like any of her raid ups. Because I was like, at some point, she's going to spook me on a banner, right? Like she's going to come in out of nowhere when I'm trying to summon for somebody else, and she's just going to pop in there, and then I'm going to regret going on this raid up thing. I mean, sure, she'll be NP2, which is great, but you know, for the most part, it's like I just wanted to have Mordred on my account, right? I wasn't like, I don't know how much I'll actually like use her, like break her out, like maybe every now and then, but you know, it's just a servant I really wanted. It's just something that I think I would have regretted. So I don't know, just take this as like a little PSA of like, I just don't think it's a really good idea to summon on this banner. This is actually full transparency. This is like my 5th time recording this video, because I think the first couple of times I was being a little, I don't know, maybe too nice, or too maybe like quote unquote encouraging of like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead and summon on the banner, go get your favorite guys. Like, no, I think first I really need to like stress the idea that this is just not a good idea. It's just not a good banner to be spending your Saint Quartz on. Because at the end of the day, this is a gacha game, right? And ultimately, what the company wants to do is they want to drain you of all your in-game resources and hope that when they drop some really insane broken servant like Morgan over on Melusine, whoever Castoria comes back, they're going to hope that you're going to spend money on the game, because there you go, like ZTL breaks down how gacha games work, right? And so like you would just say this is like a bait banner. I just don't think it's a good idea to give into the bait of this banner, even if, you know, you're like me and you really like someone like Sean, or like, you know, I mean, now I have Mordred, but if I didn't, you know, be like, oh, Mordred's also a really good option to kind of like, ooh, maybe try to go get, because I like Mordred a lot. It's just like, no, I just don't think it's very wise. I think the only way that like you could really justify going is like if someone here is like your absolute maximum favorite waifu servant, right? And you're just gonna have so much more fun playing the game with your waifu servant. Like you're gonna grail them, you're gonna bond them up, right? Because you just love them, right? Then by all means, if someone on here is that servant for you, then I can't really stop you. Because at the end of the day, I also, while I try to like put out videos, guiding people down the right path and being like, hey, this is like kind of the smart, effective way to go. If you want to be efficient, or you want like a good team, or if you want to utilize the servant properly, do all this. But at the end of the day, you should be playing the game and having fun. And so if one of these servants is going to make it more fun for you, then by all means pop off, right? Because if you're not having fun, why are you playing? Which I'm expecting a lot of comments, people being like, I'm not having fun, why am I playing? And they're just like, huh. I'm expecting a lot of comments about that, because a lot of people are like, am I having fun? But look, like for instance, I just play for the story. I love reading like anything like really Nasuverse related. So, you know, I just really enjoy reading the story, and that's how I have my fun. So they can't bait me with these banners. They're not going to be able to get me. Yeah, with all that being said, I hope this video was, you know, informative if you're more of like a newer player, gave you some little insights into FGO. And if you're a long-time viewer, I'm sure you just enjoyed the more discussion type video. But yeah, I think on that note, I don't think I'm gonna make any videos on anybody here, but I might. I don't know. Like this is like a good opportunity for me to make like a Tamama video, because I think some servants here do deserve a video. Like Artoria probably deserves a video because it's Saber, right? And then Tamamo's good enough that she probably deserves a video. But so if you see those coming out in the next couple of days, that's not me encouraging people to actually summon for them. It's just that I think they're good enough that they probably deserve some type of video. But with all that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Late, guys.